Yo, what's up guys? Joker bringing you another video. In this video, I'm going to be going over a couple of things that I would like to see Path of Exile or Path of Exile 2 really steal from TLI, Torchlight Infinite, in case you didn't know, because there is a couple of things in Torchlight that I really do enjoy. There's some things that are quality of life, and there's some things that I think just are really well, and Path of Exile would benefit hugely from them. So I guess let's get it started. So I also still don't have editing software, so this is going to be potentially pause cuts, and hopefully I'm able to string it together relatively well and it doesn't seem terrible. But the first thing that I want to go over is the hero ranking. This is a tool that is integrated into the game that shows the rankings for the characters. It's essentially a leaderboard, right? But it's a leaderboard that has every class, the most commonly used skills, and stuff like that. The best part about this, in my opinion, is the fact that not only does it show you all of the skills that a person is using to get their damage, it shows you all of their items. This is an extremely helpful tool in Torchlight because it helps you build your character, right? So I'm playing Catgirl Erica and I'm using Berserking Blade. This is going to allow me to look at the players that have higher damage than me and higher survivability and see what kind of items they're using, see what kind of gear that I would want. I think this would be extremely helpful. That way, especially new players will be able to know what way of itemization they really want to go, right? Like, what would your next upgrade be? What modifiers do you want on your items? Stuff like that. If you're from Path of Exile originally, you know that we have PoE Ninja, but I do not like PoE Ninja because people will artificially inflate their numbers on there to the moon, where majority of the time they're not even functioning builds. To my knowledge, these are all functioning builds. Like, it's not them just boosting their numbers, it's these characters are actually working. And that's to my knowledge, right? It could be the same thing as a PoE Ninja, but I really don't believe it is. On that same train of thought, the next thing that I would really like to see is some kind of a challenge, right? Some kind of leaderboards for effectively killing something. So, boss conquest is effectively that, right? It's comparing you to everyone else in your essentially ascendancy, and you're competing for the top spot on the leaderboard. I think this would be really cool in Path of Exile too, because right now there's really no competitiveness in PoE, and I really would appreciate some, like, yeah, there's a lot of people making builds, but there's like no competition outside of racing. And with the racing, it's not going to be able to exist in Path of Exile 2 because Path of Exile 2, at least right now, relies way too much on RNG. So I would like to see something like this. They could even use Kitava for this, or a boss like that, and just have it have that infinite scaling health and have a rankings. That way we can have that sense of competition. And for the rewards, obviously they wouldn't be able to give out crafting materials. Well, I have an argument for why they actually could if they did the exact same thing, like if they bound the currency to the character like they do here, where it can't be traded. It would definitely help in like solo self found as well, but they could give out like MTX and stuff like that, right? Make it a competitive scene where there is rewards, because I want competition in Path of Exile, especially Path of Exile 2, since there is such a large and diverse player base, but there's really nothing that we can compete in. I think it'd be really healthy for the game if we were to start integrating some of these competitions and these leaderboards into Path of Exile 2, especially since these aren't third-party applications like PoE Ninja or anything like that. They're integrated directly into the game. Everyone always feels good when they're on the top of a leaderboard, and especially if you're getting rewarded for it, right? Everybody wants to be number one. Up next is going to be something literally every, not every, but a lot of other ARPGs have, and that is some kind of combat dummy, right? Some way for me to be able to tell in game what my effective DPS is, because tooltips are always going to be inaccurate because they don't take into a lot of considerations that actual combat would, right? It doesn't take into consideration like if your target's on full health, if you crit recently, does the enemy have ailments? And it makes us rely on tools like POB. And don't get me wrong, I really appreciate local identity working so super hard to give us POB. And if he has helpers, the people helping him working super hard to give us POB. But I'd much rather appreciate an in-game tool. That way I don't have to use so many third-party assets, especially once again, because there is so many players going into Path of Exile. It would help you build your character because skills don't always work the way you intend. Think of something like Spark, right? The top players with Spark builds currently, if you were to look at their damage links, none of them actually have a damage link on their Spark. They have the beneficial modifiers, more cast speed, more projectile speed, and a normal or new player won't really see the benefit over that over something that's like 40% more damage, right? Where they're just trying to boost their tooltip, because there is so many factors that actually go into how a skill plays, how a skill feels, like so many factors go into that. I'd really appreciate an end game damage dummy. That way I'd be able to just swap out skills and see, okay, I lose this much damage, but it just feels infinitely better to play. That's my biggest problem with POB, is it's just a numbers thing. You don't actually get to see how the skill feels, and feel is a really important part in ARPGs. Up next is something really cool, in my opinion, and this is essentially integrated build guides, right? People are able to go ahead and make build guides and upload them for the character that you're playing. You're going to be able to see every character in the game and get a full build guide in game. If you select one of these, it is going to go ahead and it's going to highlight the skills for you. Let's just apply this real quick as an example. If I go to my skill tree now, I'm sorry, wrong one. If I go to my skill tree now, it's going to go ahead and it's going to highlight my progression path, the nodes that I should be taking to play this build. It would make build guides for new players incredibly easy to follow on the same in the same aspect of loot filters. That's what we got over here. We have integrated loot filters. A lot of new players don't really know what they should be looking for in game, and Neversing did just drop the filter blade. But if a more experienced player was able to go ahead and just throw their loot filter that they're using up it onto a leaderboard or a pro builds guide, right? Integrated in Path of Exile 2 that a new player would just have to click. Let's say you're following your favorite content creator's loot filter, right? They just click it. Same thing with the build guide. They just click it and it streamlines the process for new players as well as existing players. Now, this one I know is going to be hands down the most controversial thing that I say. I know it for a fact, but it's going to be a path of progression that rewards players. As of right now, there is no way to earn any type of stash tab or anything in game, right? You can't really earn any kind of purchasable microtransaction like that. With the original Path of Exile and the League achievements, you can get skins and stuff like that. But because Path of Exile is bottlenecked by stash tabs, especially Path of Exile 2, it would be really cool to see if there was some kind of progression path that the players could do to potentially earn like a free stash tab, right? It doesn't even have to be a premium stash tab. It could just be a stash tab. And I feel like it would really be appreciated, as well as it would help a lot of players out, because that's the big bottleneck for a lot of players is they're jumping into Path of Exile and they really don't have that many stash tabs, and some of them may not wanna or may not be able to actually buy the stash tabs, right? So I think a way to actually earn the end game rewards like stash tabs and stuff like that, or more rewards for the season progression, right? Like I said, in regular Path of Exile, there is the season rewards where you usually get like a skin or something. But if we could get like a little bit more than that, like set milestones up that will give us like a pet or a armor glove, like just more than we're normally getting, because the 40 challenges you have to do in Path of Exile is a lot for a lot of people. So get it, setting like smaller milestones that reward players, I think would be extremely beneficial for the game. Up next is going to be something that the Chinese servers for Path of Exile already have, and I would like to see in Path of Exile too. I wasn't able to fully demonstrate it here, but I'm going to show part of it. Part of it is going to be a pseudo loot pet. The Chinese servers for Path of Exile, my understanding, already have loot pets, and I'm not saying for big items, I'm saying for the bubblegum currency. I don't want to click 30 regal shards or 30 orbs of transmute, and it is pseudo wasteful leaving them on the ground. It would help new players get a jump start on currency generation as well. It's something that we really need, as well as the ability of having a pickup hotkey. As you can see there, I have it bound to spacebar. So when I'm looting items, I just have to hold down space and it goes ahead and it loots the items for me. A loot key would be really, 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 really nice. And then the last thing that I'm going to go over in this video is going to be a built-in integrated price checker, because once again, it goes away from having to lean on the third-party tools. I heard everything about like people getting hacked because they were downloading a price checker. People are unsure if it was actually from the price checker, sorry, or if it was from like a data leak with GGG. I'm assuming that people just downloaded stuff that they weren't supposed to, and it ended up in their accounts being hacked, especially newer players. There's very limited tools from a few trusted sources that you can get, things like local identities POB that you get directly from his GitHub, things like Never Saying Loot Filter, which you can get from his GitHub, or you can get it from his Filter Blade website. Those things that you don't really have to worry about because they're trusted, verified sources. I don't see Never Sync or Local Identity ever putting like a Trojan or anything in their tools, right? I mean, knock on wood, for if whatever reason they want to start their villain arc, they totally could, because like 90% of the player base relies on their tools. Um, but yeah, no, I want to see GGG move more towards integrated tools, integrated quality of life, because I just had to buy a new computer. Not because of like third-party Trojan stuff, but my last one offed itself. And I don't want to have to download a million things. I would much rather if everything was just integrated into the game for that ease and that ease of access and that quality of life, right? But that's pretty much the main things that I would like to see Path of Exile / Path of Exile 2 take from Torchlight Infinite, because there is a lot of good quality of life in this game that I feel PoE 2 is just lacking, right? I think that that's PoE 2's biggest weakness right now, is there's really not enough quality of life in the game. Not everything has to be a struggle. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with this and future content. I'm going to be watching the live stream tomorrow, and fingers crossed they say there's some really cool stuff on the horizon. But yeah, that's it. Until next time, take care.